If someone calls our hotline and they're in an abusive relationship and they're thinking about what their next steps ought to be, we'll start with where they're at. Very often they'll say to us, well, I was afraid to call because I thought you would force me or report me. People think sometimes that a domestic violence agency for adults is like DSS for kids, that they're going to get reported to some higher authority and forced to do something that they don't want to do. Usually the process is they begin to identify the fact that they're living in fear, and this is not a relationship that they want to stay in its current form. So then they come to a support group, or they'll use our hotline and get support over the phone. And it's all anonymous, so they don't have to tell us anything about even where they live or their name. Then sometimes they'll come in for individual support, and then they might come to the decision that, you know what, all the support I'm getting, I'm not able to change my partner. I think I've had enough of this. Let me go to court and get a restraining order.
A restraining order is a civil order of protection which a person suffering from abuse may seek at their local district court, probate and family court, or superior court. The four major provisions of a restraining order are in order not to contact the plaintiff, that is the person suffering from abuse, in order to refrain from abusing the plaintiff, and in order to vacate and remain away from the dwelling. The fourth major provision is also a provision to surrender any and all firearms, licenses to carry firearms, or firearms identification cards.
An advocate is available in the court system to help people walk through the system. It's a very intimidating place to be, for sure. But advocates are available to help with restraining orders, just to do the very basic paperwork and to explain what's going to happen, to prepare people for what will happen in the courtroom. Advocates are there to explain the realities of the system and also to listen, to be available and not to judge any decisions that victims are making. They're there to help them understand what's going to happen and provide them referrals and other support systems, because no victim can do this by themselves. They need the support from so many areas. And it's not just the advocate in the court, but the legal advocates from the battered women's agencies, support groups, friends, relatives, finding others to support them, because often a victim has been so isolated by her partner that she doesn't have those support systems. So advocates are available to help get that process going.
But absolutely, without a doubt, I would not have been able to leave and put my life back together if it wasn't for the domestic violence program that helped me.
After I got the restraining order, it actually ended up getting worse, because he started stalking me, breaking into my house. He went into my house one time after the restraining order and pointed a gun to my head after he had broken into my house through the kids' bedrooms. And I had been going through that kind of drama so often that I got to the point that I really didn't care if I lived or not. And I confronted him and told him just that. I told him, you know, just pull the trigger, because this isn't living. I can't live like this anymore.
I asked the landlord to change the locks of the door, and that's why was my first step. Go to the police and get a restraining order. Once he see I got the restraining order that he didn't have no control over me, things got more escalated. The abuse was crazy. He was threatening me. He was sending some people to follow me around. At this time, I have a 20 police report, and he went to jail twice for violating the restraining order, and he didn't accept it. That because the abuse was so bad that he didn't accept it, that I got a restraining order, that he's not going to be able to control me anymore.
When a victim gets a restraining order, she is challenging the power and the control of that abuser. The abusive person wants to have all of the control, and when they're told they can't see someone or they can't go to their own home, the level of anger and rage often does become much worse. And that's why I think it's so important that a victim has to make her own decision whether to get a restraining order. In general, the numbers certainly show us that that's a very helpful option for a lot of people. But I think that it has to be done in combination with safety planning and getting other support systems in place. It can't be done in isolation as one answer to the problem. It must be done along with many other remedies. But I absolutely have seen it as a powerful piece, as a beginning for women, to start with that restraining order, to say, no, I am not going to tolerate this behavior. But again, she has to do that in conjunction with other remedies.
Once a protective order is issued, a civil order of protection, violation of one of its 4 major components is deemed criminal. That is the refrain from abuse provision, the no contact stay away provision, and the vacate provision. Also, failing to surrender one's firearms, license to carry, and FID card were deemed criminal as well. And that is important because in that situation, police, upon a finding of probable cause, may arrest a defendant for violation of a protective order.
After I got my first restraining order, I mean, the charming side of them comes back. This is when they go back to being the good guy. And he convinced me that it was best to drop the restraining order for everybody's sake in the family, that I was tearing the family apart, and that it wasn't going to benefit anybody. So I dropped it. We went through that for a couple of times because of my wanting to believe that that was, truly what was in the best interest of my kids. I think that we hold on to hope for too long. We hope that we can change the person's behavior, that that things will get better, and unfortunately, with situations like this, they just tend to get worse. They don't get any better.